So anyway, the final episode, episode 16, which I'm going to put in a separate video because it's probably going to be quite a while. So, yeah, if it is a separate video, this is why. So, episode 16, the final ever episode of Bojack Horseman. Bojack gets released from prison just for like a day. He's got three a month or two or three. It's between 1 and 3 months he's got left on his sentence before he's up for parole. And basically, he's given freedom for the day, and he meets with Mr. Peanut Butter, who's waiting for him to take him to a wedding. And this is where basically all things sort of kind of click together. They kind of did also at the end of episode 14. So I'm going to briefly talk about those, just to give the context for this one. So Mr. Peanut Butter actually really does evolve as a character in this one, particularly in the second part. I mean, you've seen it subtly throughout the seasons, but particularly in season 6 and the second half of season 6. I mean, we have the Mr. Peanut Butter episode where Pickles, is signing to go off with this music pop star, and I can't for the life of me remember his name. But, he's basically, a match for Mr. Peanut Butter, except is a lot younger and is a perfect match for Pickles. And it said that, and Pickles says, oh yeah, I'll be back, and our relationship will be stronger than ever. However, in this episode, in the final episode, we don't see Pickles. And it's been a year, and I don't think Pickles is even mentioned at all in this. So it can be assumed, that Mr. Peanut Butter's or Pickles, or both of them have decided that the wedding is obviously off. Because initially I thought, oh wait, is it going to be Mr. Peanut Butter and Mr. Pickles' wedding? And no, it's not. Their relationship is essentially done, and Mr. Pickles is kind of, just content with being single. Essentially, he's just accepted it. And this episode is actually Princess Carolyn's wedding, and as a lot of people predicted, and to be honest, I kind of thought it was going to happen, her and Judah get together and are going to be getting married. That's what this whole marriage is in this episode. That's why Bojack is getting a day out of prison. Well, 2 days technically. So yeah, that is Princess Carolyn. And to be honest, out of all the characters, Princess Carolyn probably has, the best possible ending out of any of them. She has the best ending, or the happiest ending out of anyone in this. She became a mother, she had the baby, she's got a baby that she always wanted, and now she has found love and a husband that she's wanted, and she gets to continue doing the job that she loves, and basically, she gets the best ending possible out of anyone, at least in my opinion, which is nice considering, the shit that she went through and the shit that Bojack had put her through, so that's nice. And Mr. Peanut Butter, he's still, got that lovable dong in, but you can tell in this episode that he has grown as a person. He isn't just exactly the same happy-go-lucky Peanut Butter. I mean, he is, but he also, he wants to know himself more, as rather than being, constantly in relationship after relationship. This time, he wants to kind of, know himself after having a really, really nice scene where he has a phone call with Diane. That is a nice scene, seeing how that, despite, both of them not meaning to be for each other in the long term, it was the fact that they meet, that they, were married and divorced, that they were able to grow individually as people. So that's nice. That is nice. So he gets he, gets a nice ending. To be honest, there wasn't really a lot that could have gone wrong with Mr. Peanut Butter. Because he's always going to be this happy-go-lucky dog. But this time, he just... it's hard to explain it, but it's just like a nice little bit of add-on for him. A little bit of, I think, more self-awareness, I would say, with it. And then we have Todd, and obviously Todd in this second half of the season, he reconciles with his mother and that, and he says it's not easy, but both of them are trying, which is the main thing. And obviously, Todd is now, Todd in this second half of the season has moved into an apartment with his girlfriend and is, still doing his Todd mad ideas, but also trying to be sort of grown up at the same time and having a job. So it is nice to see Todd, go from the person who would just crash on Bojack's sissy to where he is now. So that is a nice ending. And basically this episode is basically Bojack having an extended conversation with all of the main characters. That's what the final episode essentially is. It's not this huge, massive, everything comes to this. No, to be honest, it's quite simple. It is quite simple. And to be honest, I'm going to say it here, it would be really easy for Bojack Horseman to just continue on after this point. It would be really easy, but, it could... But the thing is, that would mean it would be just like The Simpsons or Family Guy or whatever, where it would just endlessly go on and on and on. Whereas this, this feels like an ending, but with Ralph being Ralph, the creator of Bojack Horseman, he is stating many times that he hates, a definitive, this is where everything ends. So basically this episode, has, an ending arc for the characters, but you still feel like, very much so that things can go on. In fact, when Bojack is talking to Princess Carolyn, he basically, gives a list of things that, may or maybe, he could not do after leaving prison, but he's not sure. And when he's talking to Todd, especially, the bit where he says that he doesn't want to leave prison, essentially, because he doesn't know what to do with himself when he gets out. Because then he'll have to start making decisions for himself again, and he'll just go back on that downward spiral. That, to me, that is, just great stuff there. And to be honest, you kind of feel like maybe that's true. Maybe if Bojack is allowed to make his own decisions and isn't, forced to go in a controlled environment to do things, that maybe he will go on a bend again. Maybe he will go on this downward, never-ending, repeating spiral of things looking up and then just turning to complete and utter shit. Maybe it will be, maybe it won't, but statistically, it does look that way. But, it's just kind of one of those things where you just go, live in the moment kind of things. And then we get to the final one, which is Diane. So yeah, as stated before, I think no Hollyhock, no mention of her, actually, so it can be assumed that her and Bojack, have never spoken since in any way, and she's just completely cut off contact, which shows that there are consequences, for Bojack's past being revealed. He doesn't just get this reconcile and all his friends and that get to just forgive him and that. Which, actually, most of his friends do just forgive him. But ironically, the one, his one living relative that he has left doesn't. And it's never stated, that's what was said in the letter or what was said in between, if anything. But yeah, that was a consequence of Bojack's actions, that he has lost you know, his sister, his one remaining family member, she is no longer in his life. That is a consequence for things. Which is, you know, obviously a pretty big one. I remember watching season 4. And season 4, I remember, had a bit more of an uplifting ending. Which previous seasons, apart from season 1, hadn't really had. But season 4 kind of just like, oh well, you know, Bojack, you know, has a sister, and that, who is similar to him in a lot of ways, but obviously different. You know, it's nice, and it was nice to see her in future episodes. But now all that is gone. That is, to be honest, I think that is the biggest, you know, penalty. You know, the biggest cost of basically everything that he has done. He has lost another person, but this time, not by them dying or anything like that, like Sarah Lynn. This time by them simply not wanting to be associated with him anymore. Yeah. Just got on. There is a mention of Wanda in the season as well, and yeah, she's obviously gone. It's basically mentioned how every relationship with Bojack, you know, is just kind of ended in failure, and he's kind of just fucked up the person. But obviously this image here that you can see is final, you know, conversation Bojack has in this episode. Because basically this episode is basically Bojack having conversation with each of the main characters to kind of, you know, wrap things up in their story arcs. And this one is Diane's, and it's revealed that, yeah, she's basically gotten better, but the old Diane is still in there, still part of her. And she kind of just accepts that is part of her. It's not someone who just goes away, but it's someone who's just becomes part of you, but isn't the full you. And it's revealed that she did get married to Guy in this episode at some point. Between episodes 15 and 16, she did get married to Guy. And they now live in somewhere. Is it Mexico? I can't remember where it is they currently live, but they moved from Chicago. And she is now a successful author who has written happy books. Yeah, Diane finds that her success is in writing happy stories, and she's, you know, on the megs and getting better. And it's this final scene which sort of mirrors the original scene where her and Bojack are on the roof, except this time it's from the opposite angle. Basically, it's from the other side of a roof. You know, but previously it was on the, depending on what we'll call it, from what way the audience is seeing it by. So previously it was the right side of the roof. This time it's the left side of the roof, and they're looking obviously the opposite direction. And I think that just makes like a nice little sort of bookend of things. You know, here we go, we've come sort of not quite full circle, but we've gone 180. We've gone kind of halfway in. It's just a nice little conversation to end with, and this is how the episode ends, with them just, you know, sort of looking at the sky and just like wondering, you know, what's to come next. Obviously, Bojack's going to go back to prison. And it's just one of those endings where it's just like a not big, massive thing. It's kind of like a sort of, you know, more of a sort of calm, somber ending. It's not like a huge thing. Essentially, this episode is basically the final episode of Bojack Horseman. Is he just has conversations with his friends. You know, just to catch up with his friends. That is essentially just the final episode. It's just one of those things where you process it, because it's kind of the episode you weren't and were expecting at the same time. You know, because obviously one of the theories floating around was Bojack was going to kill himself, and possibly in the same way as Secretariat. which almost did technically end up happening, sort of. But it doesn't end like that, you know. It doesn't. It has one of those endings where it kind of feels like this is the end of this part of Bojack's life and these characters' life. You know, they've gone on this. It's kind of like the end of this character arc for all of the characters in the series. But obviously, you know, their lives will continue and more things would happen. And you could just go on, but, you know, would it still be the same? Will the characters continue to evolve? Because in each season, you know, the characters have changed and evolved as they've gone on. Mainly because of the show's, you know, kind of self-awareness with its own characters being self-aware about themselves.